Hi everyone, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day today. These are my native species. Starting out, I have lost the lid. I found it. This is the first gen wild type. See my creative little mesh top that I made. First starting out with this. But yeah, you can see they've been eating a little bit of this, and you can see a couple of them there. I'm actually gonna show you guys this one. This culture's been doing pretty well, as you can see. I've actually pulled from this one already, all the adults, and the babies grew up and had babies, so there's plenty of mankai and babies in there. They definitely chowed down there. Try to get a close up for you guys. So this is my first ever attempt at housing isopods, and they are definitely thriving in here. You can see they've been chewing up on the leaves a little bit. I'm try to set this down nice and gently. But yeah, what I do as far as feeding, try to focus it. There we go. I have this crushed up eggshell. I sprinkle a little bit in there. I'm left-handed, so I'm sorry guys. I'll use my right hand. I just sprinkle some all the way around into the cork bark. They eat this stuff up. It disappears within like a couple days. Next up, I have my bearded dragon's shed that I take with the pestle and mortar and crush up into a almost powder. I sprinkle a little bit right there. That usually disappears pretty quickly. And then I add a few sprinkles of this. It's not sponsored, any of this stuff's not sponsored, it's just something I have on hand. These are shrimp food pellets. I had to get rid of a lot of my fish tanks because I live in an apartment on the second floor, and so I use most of my shrimp foods that I had. I use those in the enclosures. They get gobbled up pretty quickly. I don't put a lot of those because they have plenty of leaf litter. They chew it down, as you can see. And then I occasionally put a couple of these shrimps in there, little river shrimp. I just kind of put them random places. They get chewed down to dust, basically. And then I usually add more of this, but I guess I could probably top it off just a hair. They turn it into a little mountain. I just use a little art tool. I just kind of dig some out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I just checked the moisture level of this bag. It's still somewhat damp. It's just damp enough where it'll get through another couple days. I've kept this for long enough to understand how much or how often I need to spray. My next one will have to be the wild type that I've caught in front of my apartment. My next project that I did, I made a different mesh. I tried a different way. This is another generation. These have been pretty prolific. The food is all gone always. Little pieces of cuttle bone in there. This is just some moss I tossed in there. They eat it up like it's nothing. As you can see, this is what the leaves look like after a while. They really devour these leaves. This is one they've been starting on. It's got some holes in it, and I'm sure it's Yeah, but there's plenty of leaves in there that get chewed up, and I've got plenty of leaf litter in there. I'm going to show you guys this one. I don't typically like to lift these guys up, but this one's pretty prolific. I'm going to put these back down. The substrate I use, it's, as I say, not sponsored. None of this is sponsored. Substrate I've been using is Lagarde Isopod and millipede substrate. I really love this stuff. I wish I could get it in bigger, bulkier bags for a reasonable price. I really do. That would be lovely. So this one, they've eaten everything that I've given them. I usually give them a good amount. I use the Rapashi Morning Wood. Got a couple bottles of this. Probably should invest in getting a bigger bottle. I put some here and I put some there. This little black stuff right here, or brown stuff, that is their frass. That stuff is really good for your plants. If you ever get time to change out your substrate in these, or what I've heard is take half the substrate, split it off, split the culture. But you could also collect the frass off the corkwood if you want, and keep it in like a little jar like this or something. I haven't done it yet. I want it to let it build up. But yeah, the frass is the isopod poop. It's actually like a dry soil, almost like coffee grounds basically. I mean, it's just organic matter, so it's nothing disgusting. And then I put some of these shrimp pellets of your choice. Just try not to put anything on their moist side of the enclosure, because it will mold. If you want to, you can try to keep it off the substrate, but my substrate stays pretty dry on one side, so I could throw stuff over there and they'll eat it. And then I go ahead and add the calcium powder that I've made. Go ahead and invest in a pestle and mortar. It comes in handy for all sorts of things, for your aquariums and plant and everything else needs. There's quite a bit in here, so I like to be diligent with adding extras. So with the shrimp, the river shrimp, I just toss them in there. This is actually like a turtle food or fish food. You can hear my bearded dragon jumping around in her cage. And then I go ahead and top it off with a little bit of her scales. You can spread it out however you want, if I can get it. I just try to be sparingly with this stuff because she doesn't shed a lot, but it comes in handy. It just note on their enclosure, no, they can eat. I check this. It's still nice and damp. I just sprayed it probably a couple days ago. Okay, my next enclosure is gonna have to be my Cubaris Marina Little C. I try to knock down the Springtails because they like to hang out up there, which probably freaks out all the isopods. I do need to upgrade this enclosure. I haven't done it yet. But as you can see, there are many little Cubaris in here. There's some on the bottom, little babies. I have these little pellets in here. These are actually limestone pellets that I've been given from my reptile store that's local, which he is amazing. Howley's Reptile Store. Love his shop. He started from home, and all right, buddy, let me drop some in there. They're rushing me to drop some in there for him. But yeah, they go straight for that. And then I toss some of these shrimp pellets in there. I try to put these on this side because this enclosure stays fairly damp. Cubaris are more of a tropical species. They like it more damp. This species is found in Florida, which is where I'm from. I'm actually in Spokane, Washington now, and I do get homesick, but it is fine. These guys will definitely, they are very prolific. And this is the cheapest kubars you can get, which they are a very lovely species. I love these guys. I wish I could definitely start trying. Look, I occasionally get little minnow shrimp, dried minnow shrimp or scales in there. I don't know if they'll eat it, but I'll toss it right here and see if they eat it as a test. They really eat their leaves, like literally. Oh, there's a bunch on, little babies on there. But they have devoured these leaves into nothingness, literally. This leaf's getting pretty devoured. I'm gonna have to add a little bit more here in about another, I'd say, week or so. They've been eating this flower here. But yeah, their enclosure stays pretty damp. I keep it just enough, not overly saturated, not too much to where they freaking create stagnant air. I don't put as much drainage on here. I mean, not drainage, but holes, aeration holes or ventilation. I'll just put some of this in there, let them have at it. Calcium sources are really good. It's got a little bit of protein in it too. So that's all I'm gonna do as far as them. I don't want to add too much food. Try not to overfeed anything, because that's asking for issues. These guys will eat this within the next couple days or a day, most likely in a day. They're very fast eaters. My next species I want to show you guys is probably one of the most prolific. As you can see, there's springtails all over the lid. And they probably hop everywhere, but it's fine. These are the dairy cows. I desperately need to put these in a bigger enclosure. There are babies sprouting up everywhere. These guys like it somewhat damp, so it's not as much aeration on these. I'm gonna put these in a enclosure that is a lot wider, longer, bigger, kind of like my Gestroys, what I have them in. My Armadillidium Gestroy, but these are the Porcelain laevis dairy cow. As you guys can see, these guys get pretty big. They are always hungry, always. Excuse me. So I do 1 scoop of this though. Some pellets. I'm gonna drop it in on them because, yeah, and they're gonna start probably moving around or eating it. I'm gonna put some of the scales in there. Dragon scales, basically. I have rotting wood in most of my enclosures, which definitely benefits them. This is a piece of rotting wood right here. All the springtails are all over it. I don't like lifting this enclosure bark up because it's kind of small, and once I get them in a bigger enclosure, I'll be able to show you guys better views on these guys. Put some of this crushed egg. Okay. I'm actually gonna leave it at that and give these guys maybe one piece of shrimp to chew on. And then I'll add another one in about a day. They'll be sure to eat that. The sphagnum moss in this one's pretty damp, so I'm gonna leave it. Next enclosure is the Porcelain Skaver Orange. This one I have pretty good ventilation on. So I put butternut squash in most of the enclosures. It's getting a little bit mildewy, so I leave it because the springtails definitely devour it. It's really soft and mushy. You got springtails all over it. They will eat that away. Some rotting wood in here. This species hasn't really taken off yet, but they have been having babies. That's more of an oranger one. And I've been noticing they've been eating the leaves. This is a fairly new culture for me. Of course, the fungus gnats, they are the worst. There's some really fine specimens there. Nice coloration on that one and that one. They love this wood. They definitely been chewing up on that one. Little bits of food right there. I put them in two different spots on this enclosure. What I do is I just top it off just a hair bit once they flatten it out. You can tell when they've flattened it out because you can see tiny little small footprints. I just top it off and they eat it back down to flat. And then I add some of this powder at various locations, kind of all over everything. They eat this stuff down, and whatever doesn't get eaten up, it will get broken down eventually. Toss a little bit of scales in here. I add a little bit of protein. I offer protein to all my isopods. They eat it. Some of them don't eat it as much, and I just leave it in there, and they devour it eventually. It doesn't mold or anything, the ones that I put in there, and I don't keep my enclosures too damp, except for the cubaris and certain species that need it. These guys don't really eat the shrimp that much, so I'm just gonna put one in there. They eat it, but it just takes them a while. They will eat a little bit of pellets, so I just offer those a little bit. I kind of let them roll over. I'll put one right here and a couple over here and one on this wood. So not too much. But yeah, this enclosure is still fairly damp. I'm not gonna spray it again. So, as most people do, I just keep sphagnum moss on one side of the enclosure. I'll have to show you guys how I set up my enclosures for my next builds. I have 3 new containers ready to go. This was another one I was experimenting with the hot glue and the weed blocker. We'll see if the gnats are in there still. I mean, see what happens. Yeah, there's still gnats, so it doesn't really work too much, but it works. There's still ventilation on the side here. This is actually my Armadillidium officinalis Sicily. These guys are really cool. They haven't been really eating they eat this food here, the morning wood, but they haven't been really gnawing down on the scales, so I'm not going to add any more of those. I don't think these guys are really protein eaters. That's them. Springtails galore under that wood. But yeah, these guys are really awesome. They're mostly hiding in the wood or in various spots. I probably stirred them up, but you can see they've been eating this wood here, and of course the gnats are going crazy now. I've stirred them up like a wasp nest. Here comes one. He's coming out to say hey. These guys are pretty big. I love them. they roll up in a ball. I'm gonna go ahead and top this off because this is what they really desire here. I'm not gonna put too much. I don't like overfeeding these guys. It's the smaller enclosures. I have them smaller because I need them to find each other easier. I want them to be able to breed. And once they start breeding, definitely will upgrade them. But yeah, that's all I throw in there. These guys like it more on the drier side. I'll spray a little bit because this is not too dry, but it's just right. So I'll just put a little bit of water on that. It'll soak in. And then I just keep an eye on it every couple days, every other day. I check on them. I don't like to check too often. Sometimes I give them about 3 days from whenever I checked on them. And I usually have a fan running in here that oscillates back and forth. It definitely helps with aeration. But I have my drainage hole. I keep saying drainage holes. I have my aeration holes, ventilation holes on the sides of the enclosures. So this was a setup that I did, just experimenting with this type of box. It is a bigger, wider, and shallower container. As you can see, there's always a mix of mites and springtails in all your enclosures. The goal is to try to get your springtails to outcompete the mites, and it does happen. It just takes a little while sometimes. As long as you add plenty of springtails from the start, your culture will get going, and you have to feed them. Make sure you're feeding your springtails. Make sure it's somewhat damp. They do like it damp, so I add these pieces of forget the name of this type of wood, paper bark. That helps with keeping the substrate damp just below them, and the isopods have something to munch on. There are just a little bit of isopods in here. This was a substrate I separated off from another substrate. Oh, there's a little peanut shell. Yeah, there's random things in here. This is pretty much like my box to experiment to see what I can do, what I cannot do. I really don't like to add food to this one. I just like to keep an eye on it, check on it, and I want to see how well they eat the leaves. There's isopods in here, but they were babies. They were like mankai when I put them in. Some of them are growing up. Sorry, I get the shakes. But yeah, they're doing okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'll actually add a hair bit just to see what happens of food. I wanted to show you guys if I can get it without dropping it. This is actually a shed from the rear, which is the pleopod area of an isopod. So they're shedding, that means they're growing and doing well. And that's a good sign when your isopods are growing and doing well and not dying. I've had probably since I started, maybe 2 isopods that I've seen die altogether. It's not horrible. That enclosure doesn't have as much ventilation, so I don't like to spray it too often. I might add some ventilation, but for right now it's fine. On to my next enclosure. So this is that same type of enclosure, but bigger and deeper and more ventilation, because these are my Armadillidium gestroi. As you can see, you've got one hanging out on the leaf right here, munching down. I'm actually gonna go ahead and pick him up. Now I can show you guys what he looks like. You can actually tell he just shedded. He's just shedded his front, or if he's actually about to molt. So yeah, these guys are beautiful. This guy's a little bit gray because he's about to molt his front half. Very stunning creatures. I'm gonna put him back where I just got him. I don't like to stress these guys out. I've just started with them. Here you go, buddy. Go ahead. Go under your wood. Not on my finger. There you go, buddy. Yep, that's my Armadillidium gesture. There's quite a few. I don't like to lift their bark. I like to let them do their thing and live. But yeah, you can tell they've been gnawing on the leaves. I put their foods on the top here. It's somewhat flattened out and well eaten, so I just add a little bit more. Springtails, I need to add more springtails in here because the mites have definitely increased. It's really badly. I really don't like the mites. They drive me nuts. So yeah, I'm actually going to add some springtails as we speak. Drag this over. So this is my Springtail Culture. So what I like to do with the Springtails, shake them up a little bit, get them moving around. Then I go ahead and add pieces of the moss that have them on there. There's not a whole lot on there, but I was hoping to get some more of the Springtails from Wally. I'm waiting for my shipment. He said he can't ship them out yet due to the cold weather. Yes, it is freezing here, so definitely not a good idea. I understand that. But yeah, that's all I got to add to them right now. I have a Springtail Culture in a big bin that I've been working on. But yeah, the mites definitely drive me insane on these cultures. Alright, so that's it for this shelf.